My name is Dale Alford. I am representing the Church of Christ in Weyburn. Today's reading is from the book of 2 Kings, chapters 8 through 11, and I'll be reading from the New American Standard Bible. Chapter 8. Now Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, "Arise and go with your household and sojourn wherever you can sojourn. For the Lord has called for a famine, and it shall even come on the land for 7 years." So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God. And she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And it came about at the end of 7 years that the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went out to appeal to the king for her house and for her field. Now the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, "Please relate to me all the great things that Elisha has done." And it came about, as he was relating to the king how he had restored to life the one who was dead, that behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and for her field. And Gehazi said, "My lord, O king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elisha restored to life." When the king asked the woman, she related it to him. So the king appointed for her a certain officer, saying, "Restore all that was hers, and all the produce of the field, from the day that she left the land, even until now." And Elisha came to Damascus. Now Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, was sick. And it was told him, saying, "The man of God has come here." And the king said to Hazael, "Take a gift on your hand and go to meet the man of God and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, 'Will I recover from this sickness?'" So Hazael went and met him and took a gift in his hand, even every kind of good thing of Damascus, 40 camels' loads. And he came and stood before him and said, "Your son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, 'Will I recover from this sickness?'" Then Elisha said to him, "Go, say to him, 'You shall surely recover.' But the Lord has shown me that he will certainly die." And he fixed his gaze steadily on him until he was ashamed, and the man of God wept. And Hazael said, "Why does my Lord weep?" Then he answered, "Because I know the evil that you will do to the sons of Israel. Their strongholds you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword, and with their little ones you will dash in pieces, and their women with child you will rip apart." Then Hazael said, "But what is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do these things?" Then Elisha answered, "The Lord has shown me that you will be king over Syria." So he departed from Elisha and returned to his master, who said to him, "What did Elisha say to you?" And he answered, "He told me that you would surely recover." And it came about on the morrow that he took the cover and ripped it and dipped it in water and spread it on his face, so that he died. And Hazael became king in his place. Now in the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, being with the king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became king. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, just as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab became his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. However, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David his servant, since he had promised him to give a lamp to him through his sons always. In his days, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. Then Joram crossed over Zer and all his chariots with him. And it came about that he arose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him and the captains of the chariots, but his army fled to their tents. So Edom revolted against Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. And the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahaziah, his son, became king in his place. In the 12th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, and the granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. And he walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab had done, because he was a son-in-law of the house of Ahab. Then he went with Joram, son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Judah or Syria, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians wounded Joram. So King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel for the wounds which the Syrians had inflicted on him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Syria. Then Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel, because he was sick. Chapter 9. Now Elijah the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets and said to him, "Gird up your loins and take this flask of oil in your hand and go to Ramoth Gilead. When you arrive there, search for Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimrish, and go in and bind him. Arise from among his brothers and bring him to the inner room. Then take the flask of oil and pour it on his head and say, 'Thus says the Lord, I have anointed you king over Israel.' Then open the door and flee and do not wait." So the young man, the servant of the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead. When he came, behold, the captain of the army were sitting, and he said, "I have a word for you, O captain." And Jehu said, "For which one of us?" And he said, "For you, O captain." And he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head and said to him, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I have anointed you king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel. And you shall strike the house of Ahab, your master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab every male person, both bound and free, in Israel. and I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the territory of Jezreel, and none shall bury her. Then he opened the door and fled. Then Jehu came out to his servants of his master, and one said to him, "Is it well? Why did this mad fellow come to you?" And he said to them, "You know very well the man and his talk." And they said, "It is a lie. Tell us now." And he said, "Thus and thus." He said to him, "Thus says the Lord, I have anointed you king over Israel." Then they hurried, and each man took his clothes and placed it under him on the bare steps, and blew trumpets, saying, "Jehu is king." So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimrish, conspired against Joram. Now Joram, with all Israel, was defending Ramoth Gilead against Hazael, king of Syria. Now King Joram had returned to Jezreel to be healed of the wounds which the Syrians had inflicted on him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. So Jehu said, If this is your mind, then let no one escape or leave the city to go tell it to Jezreel." Then Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Joram was lying there. And Hazael, king of Judah, had come down to see Joram. Now the watchman was standing on the tower of Jezreel, and he saw the company of Jehu as he came, and he said, "I see a company." So Joram said, "Take a horseman and send him to meet them, and let him say, 'Is it peace?'" So a horseman went and met him and said, "Thus says the king, 'Is it peace?'" And Jehu said, "What have you to do with peace? Turn behind me." And the watchman reported. The message came to them, but he did not return. Then he sent a second horseman, who came to them and said, "Thus says the king, 'Is it peace?'" And Jehu answered, "What have you to do with peace? Turn behind me." And the watchman reported. He came even to them, and he did not return. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu the son of Nimrish, for he drives furiously. Then Joram said, "Get ready." And they made his chariot ready. And Joram, king of Israel, and Ahijah, the king of Judah, went out, each in his chariot, and they went out to meet Jehu, and found him in the property of Naboth the Jezreelite. And it came about that Joram saw Jehu, that he said, "Is it peace, Jehu?" And he answered, "What peace, so long as the harlotries of your mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are so many?" So Joram reined about and fled, and said to Ahaziah, "There is treachery, O Ahaziah." And Jehu drew his bow with his full strength and shot Joram between his arms, and the arrow went through his heart, and he sank in his chariot. Then Jehu said to Bidkar, his officer, "Take him up, cast him into the property of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite, for I remember when you and I were riding together after Ahab his father, that the Lord laid this article against him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, says the Lord, and I will repay you this property, says the Lord. Now then, take and cast him into the property according to the word of the Lord. And Ahaziah, the king of Judah, saw this. He fled by the way of the garden house. And Jehu pursued him and said, shoot him too in the chariot. So they shot him at the ascent to Gur, which is in Ibleam. But he fled to Megiddo and died there. Then his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in the grave with his fathers in the city of David. Now in the 11th year of Joram, son of Ahab, Ahaziah became king over Judah. Then Jehu came to Jezreel. Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face and adorned her head and looked out the window. Then Jehu entered the gate. She said, is it well, Zimri, your master's murderer? Then he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And 2 or 3 officials looked down at him, and he said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. When he came in, he ate and drank, and he said, see now to the cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. And they went out to bury her, but they found no more of her than her skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Therefore they returned and told him. And he said, this is the word of the Lord, which he spoke by the servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the property of Jezreel, the dogs shall eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the corpse of Jezebel shall be a dung on the face of the field in the property of Jezreel. So they cannot say, this is Jezebel. Chapter 10. Now Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria, and Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria to the rulers of Jezreel, the elders, and to the guardians of the children of Ahab, saying, and now, when this letter comes to you, since your master's sons are with you, as well as the chariots and the horses, and a fortified city and the weapons, select the best and fittest of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they feared greatly and said, behold, the 2 kings did not stand before him. How then can we stand? And the one who was over the household, and he who was over the city, the elders and the guardians of the children, sent word to Jehu, saying, we are your servants. All that you say to us, we will do. We will not make any man king. Do what is good in your sight. Then he wrote a letter to them a second time, saying, if you are on my side, and you will listen to my voice, take the heads of the men, your master's sons, and come to me at Jezreel tomorrow about this time. Now the king's sons, 70 persons, were with the great men of the city, who were rearing them. And it came about, when the letter came to them, that they took the king's sons and slaughtered them, 70 persons, and put their heads in baskets and sent them to him at Jezreel. When the messenger came and told him, saying, "They have brought the heads of the king's sons," he said, "Put them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the gate until morning." Now it came about in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, "You are innocent. Behold, I conspired against my master and killed him. But who killed all these? Now then, that there shall fall to the earth nothing of the word of the Lord which the Lord spoke concerning the house of Ahab. For the Lord has done what he spoke through his servant Elijah." So Jehu killed all who remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men and his acquaintances and his priests, until he left him without a survivor. Then he arose and departed and went to Samaria. On the way, while he was at Betheked of the shepherds, Jehu met with relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and said, "Who are you?" And they answered, "We are the relatives of Ahaziah, and we have come down to greet the sons of the king and the sons of the queen mother." And he said, "Take them alive." And they took them alive and killed them at the pit of Betheked, 42 men, and left none of them. Now when he had departed from there, he met Jehoiada, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him, and he greeted him and said, "Is your heart right as my heart is with your heart?" And Jehoiada answered, "It is." Jehu said, "If it is, give me your hand." And he gave him his hand, and he took him up with him into the chariot. And he said, "Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord." So he made him ride in his chariot. And when he came to Samaria, he killed all the remained to Ahab in Samaria until he had destroyed him, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to Elijah. Then Jehu gathered all the people and said to them, "Ahab served Baal a little, Jehu will serve him much. And now summon all the prophets of Baal, all his worshippers, all his priests. Let no one be missing, for I have great sacrifice to Baal. Whoever is missing shall not live." But Jehu did it in cunning, in order that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. And Jehu said, "Sanctify a solemn assembly for Baal," and they proclaimed it. Then Jehu said throughout Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, so there was not a man left who did not come. And when they went into the house of Baal was filled from one end to the other. And he said to one who was in charge of the wardrobe, "Bring out the garments of all the worshippers of Baal." So they brought out the garments of them. And Jehu went in to the house of Baal with Jehoiada, the son of Rechab. And he said to the worshippers of Baal, "Search and see that there may be here with you none of the servants of the Lord, but only the worshippers of Baal." Then they went in and offered sacrifice and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had stationed himself 80 men outside, and he said, "The one who permits any of the men whom I bring into your hands to escape shall give up his life in exchange. Then it came about, as soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, that Jehu said to the guard and to the royal officials, "Go in, kill them, let none of them out." And they killed them with the edge of the sword. And the guard and the royal officers threw them out and went in the inner room of the house of Baal. And they brought out the sacred pillars of the house of Baal and burned them. They also broke down the sacred pillars of Baal and broke them down to the house of Baal and made it a latrine to this day. Then Jehu eradicated Baal out of Israel. However, as for the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin, from these Jehu did not depart, even the golden calves that were at Bethel and that were at Dan. And the Lord said to Jehu, "Because you have not done well in executing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart, your sons for the fourth generation shall sit on the throne of Israel." Then Jehu was not careful to walk in the laws of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, which he made Israel to sin. In those days, the Lord began to cut off portions from Israel, and Hazael defeated them and throughout the territory of Israel. Now from Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, the Reubenites, the Manassites, from Aor, which is by the valley of Aron, even Gilead and Bashan. Now, the rest of the acts of Jehu, and all that he did, and all the might that they had written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. And Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Jehoaz his son became king in his place. Now the time which Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria was 28 years. Chapter 11. When Athaliah, the mother of Jahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal offspring. But Jehoshabat, the daughter of the king Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and placed him and his nurse in the bedroom. So they hid him from Athaliah, and he was not put to death. So he was hid with her in the house of the Lord 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. Now, in the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and brought the captains of hundreds of the Kerites and the guard, and brought them to him in the house of the Lord. Then he made a covenant with them, and put them under oath in the house of the Lord, and showed them to the king's son. And he commanded them, saying, "This is the thing that you shall do. 1/3 of you who come in at the Sabbath and keep the watch over the king's house. 1/3 also shall be at the gate of Shur, and 1/3 at the gate behind the guards, shall keep watch over the house for defense. And 2 parts of you, even all who go out on the Sabbath, shall also keep watch over the house of the Lord for the king. Then you shall surround the king each with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes within the ranks shall be put to death, and be with the king when he goes out and when he comes in. So the captains of hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada and the priests commanded. And each one of them took his men who were to come in on the Sabbath, and those who were to go out on the Sabbath, and come Jehoiada, and the priest. And the priest gave to the captains of hundreds the spears and the shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of the Lord. And the guards stood each with his weapons in his hands, with the right side of the house to the left side of the house, by the altar, and by the house around the king. Then he brought the king's son out, and put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony, and they made him king, and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and the people, she came to the people in the house of the Lord, and she looked, and behold, the king was standing by the pillar, according to the custom, with the captains and with the trumpeters beside the king. And all the people of the land rejoiced and blew trumpets. And Athaliah tore her clothes and cried, "Treason, treason!" And Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds who were appointed over the army, and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks, and whoever follows her put to death with the sword." But the priest said, "Let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord." So they seized her, and when she arrived at the horses' entrance of the king's house, she was put to death there. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, that they should be the Lord's people, also between the king and the people. And all the people of the land went to the house of Baal, and tore it down, its altars and its images they broke in pieces thoroughly, and killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord, and he took the captains of the hundreds, and the Kerites, and the guards, and all the people of the land, and they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, and came by the way of the gate of the guards to the king's house. And he sat on the throne of the kings. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword at the king's house. Jehoash was 7 years old when he became king. And the word of